Our gospel lesson today comes from the book of Luke, chapter 8, verses 26 through 39. Please rise in spirit or in body for the reading of the gospel. Hear now the word of our Lord. Jesus and his disciples sailed to the Gerasenes land, which is across the lake from Galilee. As soon as Jesus got out of the boat, a certain man met him. The man was from the city and was possessed by demons. For a long time, he had lived among the tombs, naked and homeless. When he saw Jesus, he shrieked and fell down before him. Then he shouted, "What have you to do with me, Jesus, Son of the Most High God? I beg you, don't torture me." He said this because Jesus had already commanded the unclean spirit to come out of the man. Many times it had taken possession of him so that he would be bound with leg irons and chains and placed under guard, but he would break his restraints and the demon would force him into the wilderness. Jesus asked him, "What is your name?" "Legion," he replied, because many demons had entered him. They pleaded with him not to order them to go back into the abyss. A large herd of pigs was feeding on the hillside. The demons begged Jesus to let them go into the pigs. Jesus gave them permission, and the demons left the man and entered the pigs. The herd rushed down the cliff into the lake and drowned. When those who tended the pigs saw what happened, they ran away and told the story in the city and in the countryside. People came to see what had happened. They came to Jesus and found the man from whom the demons had gone. He was sitting at Jesus' feet, fully dressed and completely sane. They were filled with awe. Those people who had actually seen what had happened told them how the demon-possessed man had been delivered. Then everyone gathered from the region of the Gerasenes asked Jesus to leave their area because they were overcome with fear. So he got into the boat and returned across the lake. The man from whom the demons had gone begged to come along with Jesus as one of his disciples. Jesus sent him away, saying, "Return home and tell the story of what God has done for you." So he went throughout the city proclaiming what Jesus had done for him. This is the word of God. Thanks be to God. Let us pray. Almighty God, may the words of my mouth and indeed the meditation of all of our hearts be acceptable to you, our strength and our Redeemer. Amen. And you may be seated. Well, for a little while, we're going to be spending some time in the Gospel of Luke. We have entered into ordinary time, which is that season between Pentecost and Advent. So we've got a long go of it. This year we're in Luke, and we're not going to be completely in Luke, but we are going to spend a good bit of time in the Gospel over the next few months. And there are two interrelated themes that Luke focuses on pretty heavily. One is the way that God intervenes in the world through Jesus to take on human and supernatural forces of evil. And the one that's kind of related to that is the theme is Jesus' radical boundary crossing. And nowhere are these themes more pronounced than in today's gospel. This is one of those stories that, honestly, I'm fascinated by. I could spend weeks just talking about it. It might be a little boring for you because of all the minutia that I like to get into when I work on this stuff, and so I'm not going to do all of that. But it's a fascinating story to me. See, what happens is Jesus and his disciples are on the other side of the lake, what we call the Sea of Galilee. They're in their kind of home territory, and they cross the lake. They cross the Sea of Galilee. Now, you already know something important is about to happen just from that. Anytime in the Bible, anytime someone crosses a body of water, pay really close attention to what happens. Moses leads opens up. Elijah and Elisha, they cross over the water as Elijah is about to give Elisha his mantle of prophethood. The water is separated in creation. Crossing water is always in Scripture an important thing, heralding a new thing about to happen. Well, on the way, right before the story that we read today, on the way across the lake, they hit a storm in their boats. A massive storm comes up, and they're afraid that they're going to die. And they ask Jesus, does he not care about them? And Jesus stands up and he calms the sea. The storm just goes away. And so we establish, as we roll in to the land of the Gerasenes, we have established that Jesus is in some way has authority over the forces of nature. The disciples are kind of shocked in the midst of all this. And also keep in mind, the lake, the Sea of Galilee is not just any body of water. It's not just some random large lake in the middle of nowhere. No, the Sea of Galilee marks political and cultural divisions. West is Galilee in Judea, Jewish provinces. It's where Jesus and the disciples call home. It's where the God of the Bible, it's where Yahweh, it's where the Father, as Jesus calls God, that is where God is worshipped. It's where the law is kept. And on the east side of the Sea of Galilee is the Decapolis. It's a group of 10 Gentile or non-Jewish cities. I mean, it's still under Roman control. These are both places within the empire, but they are in different provinces. They're ruled by different rulers. They're governed according to different laws. And so by crossing the Sea of Galilee, Jesus leaves the familiar confines of his home province. He faces a storm to cross over to the territory of the other, the different, the outside as far as he's concerned, as far as the disciples are concerned, the other. Man, what an other he and his disciples get. The first person they meet when they walk off the boat is a demon-possessed man. Now, I can imagine the disciples who have mostly stuck close to home their whole lives. They've been told that good Jewish boys and girls, they don't go over to the other side of the Sea of Galilee. No, that's where those people live. And can you imagine these people who've been told that their whole lives? The first thing that happens when they walk off the boat, a naked man with chains on his feet and his hands runs up to them and begins yelling at them. Mama was right. I should have stayed home. But a demon-possessed man runs up to them. Now, I know we have talked about demon possession in the Bible before, and that is one of those things that is so difficult for us 21st century Westerners to get our heads around. We've often just kind of rounded it down to mental illness. That Jesus is just kind of a really good psychiatrist. But there's more to it than that. And look, I'm not going to try and rationally explain it. I can't. I don't know what or how we can justify what's going on here. I just know that the people who lived with this man were firmly convinced that he was under the control of evil supernatural beings. And suffice it to say that this man was under the control of something beyond himself. His life did not belong to him. He was naked, half chained, moaning, screaming. As far as the town is concerned, he is as good as dead. They've tried. They chained him down, hoping to keep him safe from himself, but he keeps breaking out of these chains. He keeps tearing them apart and running back to the cemetery. And quite frankly, the people of this town, they're done. They're done. And I can just see, and I guess, that he has become, to the people in this area, a watchword, a scapegoat for the town. He's the boogeyman that parents warn their children about. Watch out, Roy will get you. But also, no matter how bad things get, you can always feel better about yourself because you're not as bad as him. We all have, I think, people like that in our lives, right? Like we see ourselves and we think, man, I've made bad decisions, but at least I'm not him. At least I'm not her. Well, he was a living personification of this outside of the town. Kids probably dared each other. See who could get closer to the cemetery before they got scared and ran away. But the irony of this whole thing is that through Luke and through the Gospels, nobody seems to recognize Jesus. Nobody quite knows who Jesus is. Jesus will ask them, who do you say that I am? And they'll get close, but they never quite get it, right? They never understand it. But there's one person in this story and one person in Luke who seems to understand exactly who Jesus is. And it's this man that's possessed by demons. He knows exactly. This outsider knows exactly who he is. He runs up to Jesus and he says, Son of the Most High God. Son of the Most High God. Not prophet, not good man, Son of the Most High God. What do you have to do with me? Nobody else has anything to do with me. I am unclean in the most obvious way possible. I am unclean. What are you to do with me? I am not the kind of person that you, as a prophet, I am not the kind of person that you, as the Son of the Holy God, should be having anything to do with. What have you to do with me? And Jesus responds by simply asking, what's your name? What's your name? And the man answers, Legion. I am Legion. Now here's the thing, Legion is not a proper name. And 2,000 years later, when we say Legion, we generally mean a whole bunch of people. But in this time, in this place, Legion had a very specific meaning. A legion was a company of Roman soldiers between 4,000 and 6,000 troops. The most important provinces, the most dangerous provinces in the entire Roman Empire would keep a legion stationed there to keep the peace. So when someone said legion, it was a charged word. Legion was the symbol, the most visible symbol of the Roman occupation, of oppression, of the power of the empire and the emperor. I am a legion. Everybody knew what being legion meant. Legion meant that if you crossed them, you would die. Legion meant that they could crucify you, they could stab you, they could destroy you, they could take whatever was yours. I am legion. This man identifies himself He identifies himself as his possession, as his demon. He literally describes himself as his demons. What is your name? I'm Legion. See, that's not what Jesus asked him. Jesus asked the man's name. What is your name? How long had it been since anyone had treated him as human? As something other than his possession, as something other than his uncleanliness, as something other as his outcastness. He asked the man's name. When was the last time someone had wanted that? Because see, Jesus did not see this man as a harborer of demons. Jesus saw him. He saw him, not his demons, just him. And he casts this possession, these demons, this uncleanliness out of the man and into some pigs. The Bible's funny sometimes. Humor does not translate terribly well across languages and across cultures, but this is one of those funny moments that Jesus, a Jewish person, and his disciples, all Jewish, who would think that pigs are unclean, would never touch pork if they could help it. The demons say, "Don't cast us into the abyss, Jesus. Don't do that. Do something else with us." And so he puts them in some pigs, which, as far as a bunch of Jewish readers would have been concerned, was worse than the abyss itself. It was an insult. These pigs were now double unclean as far as Jewish audiences were concerned, but they rushed off a cliff and into the water, which is the same word in Greek as abyss. So what does this say about Jesus? First off, it says that he doesn't just have authority over nature. He has authority over the powers of darkness and of evil. And you would think that the people in town would be very happy about this. Well, our boy over here has been made well. Isn't that a good thing? No more having to worry about going out to the graveyard. No more having to worry about whether or not he's going to run around naked and flash one of our daughters. We don't have to worry about that anymore. All we have to do now is just celebrate that this man has been healed. You would think that's what would happen. But see, that's not what happened. They were disturbed by it. They were afraid of it. Because first off, Jesus' intervention upends the economic reality of this town. They're more concerned about the pigs than they are the man. But we knew things weren't going well for him. We adjusted to that, and now we don't have our pigs. But I think there's more to it than that. He's been healed, and that's a great thing for him, but, well, who's going to make me feel better about myself now? And if this man's life can change, what excuses do I have left? If old Roy can be better, well then, what's left for me? So they asked Jesus to leave. Here he comes in, making people's lives better, and they ask him to leave. Because in the end, that's not what they wanted. They would rather have an imperfect world, an imperfect town. They'd rather have one where demon-possessed naked men are running around than one that they can't control themselves. And they asked him to leave. And understandably, the man asks if he can go with Jesus. Jesus has called all these people who didn't ask to go with him in the first place. He's had to convince people to go. And now you have this guy who says, Jesus, let me go with you. Let me go with you. I will follow you anywhere. want people with him? But Jesus looks at this man and he determines that the best way for him to follow Christ, the best way for him to give witness to what God has done for him, is to stay put and bear witness to what God has done and how God has intervened in his life right there among the people who have seen him at his worst. A change in location wasn't what was going to change this man's life. It was Jesus who changed him, no matter where he was. It wasn't a change in location. It was the change in heart brought about by Christ's intervention in his life. Because that's what Christ does. Christ intervenes in our lives to bring healing and wholeness. Jesus sees, like he did this man, he sees our true selves. We may not be naked and living in a cemetery, but we can come to be defined by our demons, whether by other people or by ourselves. We think that we are our addictions. We think that we are our prejudices. We think that we are the prejudices that people have against us. We think that we are what the world says we are, whether we want to be or not. We are our guilt. We are the worst things that we have ever done. We are our past. We are our poverty. We are, pick your demon. But that is not how the God of Christ sees us. God knows us. God knows who we are, and God knows who we can be. When we allow Christ to intervene in our lives, it doesn't mean that he lifts us up out of difficult circumstances, but instead, Christ transforms our hearts so that we can begin to change the circumstances around us. We will continue to live in the same world, but the way we relate to the world is different. It has been changed. We bear witness to how Christ has intervened in our lives. When Christ intervenes in our lives, it may not mean that we move to a new town, but it does mean that we work on making our town better. It may not change the people around us, but it makes us more loving to those same people. It won't put more money in our bank, but it gives us a healthier relationship with the money that we do have. It may not change a relationship, an allowing of Christ to intervene in our lives. It may not change our physical or even our mental health. But Christ's intervention in our lives helps us to face the stigma of getting help, no matter what anyone else thinks. It may not change how people see us, but it helps us to accept ourselves, to see ourselves differently, because if God loves us, then we can love us and one another. Christ's intervention will not change our past, but it will help us to move into a new future. Our changed lives become beacons of God's grace to the world around us, beckoning all to know the God who has changed our hearts, our lives, our very beings, beckoning all to know the God who has freed us, the God who sees us, the God who is with us now. In the name of God the Father,